Welcome, and this is a review of the things we've covered in the last 2, maybe 3 classes. So I hope you enjoy it. If you weren't part of our classes, please join us. Our classes are Monday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're also going to be getting a class sometime during the week, a short class on Thursdays. So let's begin. We covered several things. I want to review pivots. We did forward ochos, but I want to go back to reviewing back ochos. We also worked on the follower back sacada and the lead back sacada. And then along the way, we sprinkled in some boleos. So that is a lot of material. Let's start. The pivot. 4 things. When we do a pivot, the most important thing is to keep from twisting our knees. So that's a safety thing. Safety comes first. When we pivot from our hips down. This is almost 1 unit. So first thing, thighs tight. And when we pivot, so I'm going to pivot in this direction. I'm turning here, and I'm on the balls of my feet, keeping my thighs tight, my hips together, my feet underneath here. So first, thighs tight. Next, we did an exercise in one of the classes where we tried to pivot as much as we can until we lost balance. This is a great way of testing our ability to hold ourselves and giving our bodies a chance to adjust. Some things that will help is keeping our spine straight, and I call this heads up. So here, I'm pushing my head upward from my belly all the way up to keep my spine from going like this. So when I pivot, I can do so with less wobbling. Number 3, belly button into the spine. I wind up, if I'm going to go in this direction, I wind up my body this way. If my belly button is just hanging out, nothing happens. But if I keep my belly button tight, I'm winding up like a little spring. And when I release, it's relaxing. Release. Our body relaxes when it's released. It's unwinding. So thighs tight, heads up, belly button into the spine. 4th thing, sink into the sand. So by that I mean when we pivot on the balls of your feet and imagine yourself sinking into the sand. So here I'm winding up. Now be careful, I'm not counter-rotating and going forward. I'm just winding up and I'm thinking of the balls of my feet sinking into the sand. Winding up, balls of the feet sinking into the sand. If you combine those, thighs tight, heads up, belly button into the spine, sinking into the sand. Whoops, what didn't I do there? I didn't sink into the sand. I went on my heels. See if you can catch my next mistake. I didn't have my belly button into my spine. Did you catch that? There. Now I'm using my body to pivot instead of using here. Catch the next one. What didn't I do? Yep. Heads up. All right. So I have to remind you, pivots, I just did one direction, but there are really 4. On each foot, left foot, forward and back, right foot, forward and back. We spent some time on the forward ocho, and last class we spent some time on the back ocho. Some things about the back ocho that are really important to remember. There are 4 elements in the back ocho that I really want to focus on. One is a back ocho, really, it's a back step with a pivot. So very simply, And when we covered this before, but when we move any part of our body and we extend it, well, another part of our body has to counterweight that so we don't fall. So here I'm falling. I'm extending, but I'm falling. Do you see the center of weight? Take a look on the screen. Point to my center of weight, and you see how it's moving? We don't want that. We want my center of weight to be exactly the same place until the last moment, until we pivot. So that means to do that, there's some part of me that has to move in the opposite direction. Like there. Do you see that? My belly button moved a little forward. There. So I call that counterweighted extension. I'm counterweighting my extension. Second element. As we pivot, as we do our back ocho, I want to keep the forward part of my body facing my partner. Instead of this. I've seen this so many times. Not only does it lose connection, but it loses the opportunity for torque and to make the pivot easier. If I keep my partner in front of me and I have very little rotation of my upper shoulders here, I'm actually winding up my spring, and so that when I pivot, I'm doing strong here, so I'm extending. When I pivot, it's like a release. You should try that. Go here, pivot, and bring my belly button into my spine, and release. Can you feel your body relax? So that comes to number 3. So first is counterweight extension. Second is face your partner. And 3, release torque when you pivot. So here, counter body extension. I'm facing my partner. I'm releasing or relaxing. The fourth element that we covered has to do with aesthetics. You can do all this and dance perfectly well, but I want you to look beautiful when you do back ochos. When doing any step back, I see people bend their knees like this, and it's okay. It'll get you by, and it's certainly the lead may not notice it unless you do long steps. But what I'd like you to do now is think about this. Think about whenever you do a back step, it starts here, including a back ocho. We covered this in class before. My foot starts here, and I don't want to have a bend in my knee there. So purely for aesthetics, I always think of my back steps as being led by the back of my knee, right here. And going along with that, why stop at the knee for this? Why not go all the way down to the balls of my feet? So I actually bend my ankle there instead of keeping it flat. If I flat like this, there's a little bit of clump there. But instead, I'm doing a back ochos, extending. There. So again, with a back ocho, counterweight extension, face your partner, release that torque that gets created when you face your partner, when you pivot, and then the aesthetics. Some exercises here, just do it. Practice, practice, practice. Focus on each one of those 4 elements every time you practice. Don't focus them all at the same time, but one at a time. And then I'm going to just really briefly review what we covered in this last class, and that's the follower back saccada and the lead back saccada. So it's just an application. I want to warn you, not all followers can do a back saccada. I want you to be able to be led in a back saccada. If I, as a lead, have a partner who has minimal changes, minimal deflection up here, and is really facing me, I know I can lead a back saccada. Because all I have to do is take that extension and give it a little, when that lands, a little bit more of a lead. and that leads into a back saccada. So it's called over-rotating. I don't like that term. But here, I'm over-rotating, and it creates a back saccada. A back saccada is when the follower, for the follower's back saccada, is when the follower, like if these are my lead's feet, I'm going right between the legs there. It's never done. A follower never leads a back saccada. But if if I overturn my follower, I can translate it down. If my follower is this, they're already overturned, and there's nothing I can do to lead a back saccada, because I would have to work really hard to do it. So, two things with a follower back saccada. First, it relies up here. It relies on this. Back ocho, it relies on this being very level and being very light. Then I can easily overturn it. Second thing is it's a back step. When you do feel yourself overturned, it's just a simple back step like that. And with that, there's that extension. Now, what you'll feel when a lead leads it well is that you'll be going a back ocho, and then you'll have this So here's the back ocho. There'll be an overturn, and then it's a wave. Like that. A lead to step back. Let's briefly cover the lead back saccada now. The lead back saccada, let's talk about the follower first. So a back saccada is a lead doing basically a back pivot into or between the follower's legs. As a follower, I'm going to be the follower to my lead. I'm just doing a side step, forward step. Side step, forward step. I would argue that the follower has to do nothing but do a molinete. So side step, forward step, that's 2 steps. But a lead has to do this on the first step, pivot, and step back on the second step. So that's 3 steps the lead has to do. But that's not unusual. When you lead a back ocho, you're leading this. 1, 2. Here, instead of 1 and 2, it's 1, 2. So you can think of it as 1, 2, and then step. 1, 2. The timing is the most important thing. It's the most important thing about back saccada. If you lead it if you do 1, 2, 3, you're going to be either late, or when you add a pivot to that, you're going to step on their toes. So exercises for a lead back saccada is just 1, 2. Try to give that as smoothly as possible, and you can use your upper body for some counter rotation, for some rotation. So 1, 1, 1, 2. And notice how close my feet are. 1, I'm actually stepping right there. When I do this, kind of think of it, I'm actually rotating my hips are out. 1, 2. So I'm starting that movement there. To practice, though, I would practice getting that torque in ahead of time. That helps a lot, because that's a big pivot. You have to go 1, 1, 1, 2. Now, I want to caution you. It's not it's not this. I'm always going in one direction, not this direction, the other. It's when you think of it, the upper part of my body is just going like that. And then something we covered in the last class that I'll just talk about really briefly is the forward and back boleos. And back boleos, I led regular boleos. I showed there's a couple of ways to do it. First, we should have a range. There should be a range of how we do boleos, and the default one is knees together. As an embellishment, you can just up. You see that? I'll do it with my other foot. Up and around. Ooh. Now notice I'm pivoting. And then we did forward boleos. So let me do it this way so you can see. Something there. You might want to start by balls on the balls of your feet. This. Here, I'm not pushing my feet in. I'm not pulling it in. I'm not doing like that. I'm allowing it to swing in and out. I'm allowing it to swing up and out. That's because when I'm leading a forward boleo, I can lead it with emphasis, so it goes in the air, or not. The default is going to be foot on the floor. If I lead a forward boleo and I lead it too hard, that's one thing. But if the follower, I add too much energy to it, I add any energy at all to it, it can cause somebody to get hurt. So forward and back boleos, a few different embellishments, and that's it. A review, for pivoting. Belly button into the spine, heads up, thighs tight, sinking into the sand. For back ocho, counterweight that extension. This is the most common mistake, is they'll go like this. No, counterweight that extension, change weight at the last minute. That's one. Facing the partner is 2. That way you create that torque. And 3 is releasing that torque. Oh, that's forward. There's back. Releasing that torque. We covered aesthetics. That's extension with counterweight. And then something else that came up in class is it's easy to do this and then step, or pivot and then step. What I want you to be able to practice is it's smooth, so that you're doing this and it's one continuous flow. As followers, we are always trying to be water. We are trying to flow, trying to flow, trying to flow. Okay, that, and then the followers and leads back Sacada, forward and back boleos. So we'll have class next week, 5 o'clock Monday and Thursday, and I'm going to throw in a special half-hour class at 7 p.m. on one of these days. I look forward to seeing you again. I hope you got something out of it. Thank you very much. This is Jurni Rocco, out.